Hello, everyone. Welcome to another webinar in January. I am here with Natalie from the Overflow team, and I am Emily, your Designlab community manager and student advocate. Today, our topic is actually, it hits really close to home, especially for all of our folks who are in UX Academy right now. Today, we're focusing on design critiques and how to communicate your work like a for those of you who are current students, you know exactly how important it is to get feedback on your work and how to communicate your work effectively and efficiently. So Natalie is going to be able to walk us through Overflow today, just kind of what the tool's about and how it's going to help you with your project and how to kind of get the feedback that you're looking for. So just some logistics. Say hello, in the chat, just like Kevin just did right now. Let us know where you're from. We're happy you're here. And then if you do have questions about the product itself or Designlab, feel free to toss those questions in the questions tab. And then we're going to spend about 35 to 45 minutes on the presentation itself. And then when Natalie's done, we'll kind of answer some questions that we have in the questions tab at the end of the presentation. Sounds good? So I'm going to hand it over to Natalie, let her introduce herself, what we're talking about, and then we'll jump straight into the presentation.
Hi guys, thank you Emily for the invitation, and thank you guys for opting in for this session. On my end, I come from Cyprus, a small Mediterranean island. It's 9 o'clock in the night. I think on your end it should be like mid-morning, like 11 o'clock, something like that. All right, cool. So I'm gonna share my screen and get into the presentation. We're gonna split it into two parts. So we're going to do a brief presentation about design critiques and a little bit of storytelling. And then we're going to jump right into the tool and do a demo, right? Let's share the screen. Okay. Okay, can you all guys see my screen? I'm going to start and hopefully everything's okay. It's okay. So, as I said, I'm Natalie. I'm the product owner of Overflow. Overflow is a product of Proto.io Inc., the company that builds productivity.
Really quick, Natalie, are you sharing your screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, we're still looking at you and me. And as much as I'm sure everyone would like to keep looking at us, I'm sure they care more about the presentation.
Yeah. I think now we are good to go.
Yes, there we go. Okay, that is perfect. Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
So, Natalie, product owner of Overflow. Overflow is a product of Proto.io Inc., the company that builds productivity tools for product design teams. You might know our flagship product, which is Proto.io, the prototyping platform. Before I joined Overflow, I used to be a technical co-founder in various startups. And throughout my journey, what I've realized is that doing the work is like half the job. And the other half is communicating what you have done and why. And that's why I chose to talk a little bit about design critiques and then show you how Overflow can help you your work better. All right. Here is our agenda. And yeah, so this is a great illustration by Pablo Stanley. I don't know if any of you have seen this before, but I mean, do you guys relate to this illustration? Do you ever get these feelings of hesitation or even fear about what is about to happen right before you enter a design critic meeting? Having to deal with rejection, persuade a lot of people, think about psychology, and perhaps even being political can feel a little bit too much, right? But it doesn't have to feel always like this. And why does it feel always like this? Meetings become dysfunctional when we start getting defensive and taking critique as an insult, right? In the impulse of pushing back on every comment that we get from our team members, we tend to lose ourselves in illogic arguments and fight for things that are irrelevant, considering the big picture. And the more bad meetings we get, the more defensive we get. On the flip side, there is such a thing as bad feedback. So bad feedback usually focuses on the solution, not the problem. It's directed to the designer and not to the design. For example, if you hear your choice of colors instead of the choice of colors, that's a direct feedback. And sometimes it tends to be a little bit subjective. Another thing that happens is that while presenting, you get bombarded like with all these unwanted requests and feedback like this. Can you make the logo bigger? Or I think the button should be rounded, blah, blah, blah. So the reason I'm saying unwanted is not necessarily because it's not valid or they are wrong in any way, but it could be that the goal of the meeting is completely different, or the design that they are currently giving critique is not even 100% ready. So you can tell that a meeting is not right. Remember when we were in the offices and having meetings, that's how it looked. So you know that meetings are not right when they take longer than expected. That means that conversations get out of hand and you eventually leave the meeting without having actionable feedback. But not having actionable feedback means that we cannot move forward with our work to iterate, improve, and come back with new designs and new suggestions. Design critique, in a nutshell, is basically evaluating design and providing actionable feedback on whether or not it meets the business objective and the user needs. That's super important, that it meets the business objective and user needs. So we as a product team, as a company, we have two products, right? So we have two product teams. We do a lot of design meetings and we've done so many meetings wrong. I cannot tell you how many times we got out of the room frustrated and without having, a result. But over time, we've improved a lot. And internally, we now go through certain rules that I'm going to share with you all today, and hopefully you'll find them helpful and applicable. So in general, the audience should be like max 7 to 8 people, because more than that, it's a little bit hard to get everyone on board, and it's a very diverse audience. And each meeting should have a presenter. Someone needs to be appointed as presenter, which usually is a designer. When we added a facilitator to the meeting, we found that it was super helpful and extremely effective, because it was also facilitating and note-taking during the meeting. Obviously, no good can come out of a longer than an hour meeting. And the super important thing is that when we started, sharing more about where we are in terms of the life cycle of the product, that got us on the right foot in the meeting. So it set the expectations on what was about to happen. So three steps, let's say, to effective design critic meetings. During the preparation, you need to invite all and only the people that can contribute to the meeting at least 24 hours before the meeting. And you need to make sure that your invitation, it actually includes a description with things such as the goal of the meeting, what questions you would like answers for, and the objectives that for the meeting itself. Have an agenda. For example, say that the agenda of this meeting will go through an intro presentation and a Q&A. Why attend? That's extremely important. You need to remind people why they should join this meeting, right? We get a lot of invitation to meetings, and you need to be reminding them why and what is expected from them. You're gonna hear me say the word expectations like 1,000 times in this presentation, but essentially this is it, managing expectations. And lastly, what you should add when you invite people is any additional material. So for instance, if you have any designs available to share, or you have some meeting minutes from previous meetings, or any other supporting materials, for example, constraints, some business objective, anything that you know and they don't, you need to share that in advance. That gives context and it prepares your audience better. So setting the stage, and know that you're excited to show your work, but before you do that, you have to remind everyone why they're here and what the desired outcomes are. You need to clearly describe what you're about to present and what needs to be discussed, and most importantly, what not to discuss. Now, visual fidelity. Visual fidelity it's super important. We are doing design critique, right? So you need to set the fidelity expectations right up front. Otherwise, people will end up, commenting on content copy, on UI, colors, typography, when in reality, this is not what you are looking to get. So much work. And we are now in the stage of presenting, okay? So when you present, you need to choose the right way. And you need to choose the right medium to present your designs. And it's not one solution fits all. So you might want to create a prototype, especially if you're showing like an interaction design, or you want people to navigate, to see how it feels to navigate in your product. But in most cases, prototypes are not ideal. When doing design critique through using prototypes as the medium, it's like looking at your designs and your product through a keyhole, right? And missing the big picture, versus using the user flow diagrams to view the big picture and actually tell the user tell the story from a user perspective. Okay, so I said a magic word, which is 2 words actually. Tell the story. So storytelling, and this is one of the things that I'm gonna talk a little bit. I'm definitely not the expert at storytelling, but I'm gonna like scratch the surface of this topic. But I urge you to go and learn more about storytelling and all the techniques that are around this beautiful thing. Because if you are in this industry, you need to learn how to present and how to tell stories. So, okay. So since ancient times, storytellers have given their audience an escape from their everyday troubles by immersing them in worlds that they've never imagined, learning about the adventures of legendary heroes. A story has 3 components: the hero, the scene, and the plot. If you don't know who this guy is, this is Odysseus. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correct. In Greek, it's Odysseus. This guy, he faced more struggles finding his way back to Ithaca rather than when fighting the Trojan War. So if a story is good, it can be told through any medium. The medium we're going to see today and in our presentation is user flow diagrams. And even through that medium, if a story is good, it would be just as great as watching a movie. So let's try to make the analogy of the 3 story components to design. So our hero has to be someone that the audience can empathize with. So in our case, the audience the hero is essentially the user, and the audience needs to understand what are the goals, what are the desired outcomes, the motivation, challenges, and compromises that hero is facing. In user flow diagram, the hero, as I said, is the end user or the persona. And by empathizing with our users, we can actually think critically about how to help them and to achieve their goal. The scene is the second component. And here, if the scene is realistic enough, the audience will go into that world. It will forget where they are and go into their world. The more realistic it is, the better it is for your storytelling. In our case, in design, user scenes are essentially the different subflows of an app or a website. Think about an online website where you buy stuff. A scene could be the authentication. Another scene might be the checkout. So by adding more details to that scene, so more of the things that makes it an authentication scene, let's say, the more realistic it becomes and the audience can fully understand what you are saying. Now, the third and final component is the plot. And that's where it gets interesting. The plot consists of 3 parts: the start, middle, and end. And if you think about, and there are different types of plots. So it's not, you have a lot of, if you think about movies, there are different types and different scenarios. But think about a typical movie scenario. It starts by having to save someone that they care from danger. That's the goal, right? The middle is the hero's journey with all the different circumstances and dangers that happen during their mission. And in the end, or when there is resolution, our character returns back to the beginning, but having completed their mission, but fundamentally changed by the things they encounter along the way. The plot is the user journey. So by following the plot, we can see the troubles that our users might face. And contrary to movies, it's our job to work on our designs to make their journey easy and enjoyable. I said that slower because I want to emphasize that it's our job. So it's our responsibility to make sure that users feel happy when they are using our products and when they interact with our interfaces. Okay, so I'll take a pause and see if there are any questions before I go to the demo.
No questions.
Are we okay?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, so we're going to see a demo of Overflow. A little bit of background about Overflow. So Overflow is the first user flow diagramming tool tailored for product design teams. We, as a company, have another product, a prototyping platform. So from our users, we realized that they wanted a way to see the big picture, to be able to see the complexity of their product. But at the time, there was no solution where you could create a user flow diagram. The alternatives were to get a UI kit, create a huge artboard. I don't know how many of you have done this. Create a huge artboard, put the screens together, and manually go and connect each screen together. The downside of that thing is that when you were making changes to your design, it was very hard to go back and change the user flow diagram. And in addition, it would only be exported into a static format. So essentially, you would share that by sending a PNG or a PDF. So we've built Overflow to fix that. So we built Overflow to make the creation process super fast and to create a way to present and tell the story and to share and get feedback really easy and super simple. So Overflow integrates with the most popular design tools, and I'm gonna go right into it. Just a second. Whoop. Where is it? Okay. Let's see my screen.
Yep, we see the recent documents for Overflow.
Okay, cool. So Overflow is a downloadable app. So it's recently available for macOS and Windows as well. So you need to download Overflow and then integrate with one of the most, with the design tool of your choice. So Overflow integrates with Adobe XD, Figma, Sketch, Photoshop, but you can also add images. So if you are using a wireframing tool like Balsamic, you can drag and drop you can export screenshots from that app and drag and drop them into the tool. So it's a blank canvas, and you can either bring your designs or you can use shapes to create early stage ideation flows. It's a very powerful tool. It has a lot of customization options that we can have a look a little bit down the line. But what you want to do with Overflow is that you want to create a user flow diagram right from your designs. Sorry guys, I'm having a little bit of trouble with the two monitors, but I think now it should be okay. All right, so here I'm going to use Figma. So what I've done in order to be able to sync my designs from Figma, I've installed the Overflow plugin for Figma. You can find it in the community page. And as a designer, I want to present my work. So I've designed this beautiful app, which is a shopping app for buying sofas. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit sync. So I'm using the Overflow plugin here, and I'm going to hit sync to see what happens, right? So once I hit sync, and now I'm in Overflow, it brings all my designs into this canvas. But look what happens. I can easily access each and one of these layers. The thing about this is that I can easily start dragging connectors, right? So let me zoom in a bit. Each layer has a magnet where you can start dragging connectors from and connecting things together. Let me connect a few more. Okay. So when you're creating a user flow diagram, what you want to achieve, your end goal is like to tell the story. So you need to create it in a way that shows the journey of the user, that goes from point A to point B. In our scenario here, what we're going to do for this example, we're going to build a flow to show the authentication flow, how a user logs into the app, authenticates himself, and then goes to browse a product and buy another sofa to the cart. Okay, so Overflow, we are a productivity tool, so we have a lot of keyboard shortcuts that you can use to do things around. One of it is, I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut, Alt, narrow key, to space out a little bit my screens, right? So I can also rearrange my screens. Put it here. Oh, there we go. And connect a few things more. Another thing that is really nice to do is to create subflows by using these shapes. I'm not going to do the whole example, but let's do a few things. Okay, change the opacity, and so on. So let me connect a few more things. I'm using C as a keyboard shortcut to connect things. And this one, okay? So you can also add images, as I said, but and this makes it a little bit nicer. So let's add a logo, and you can add text. I think it started to look nice. So why what I'm doing here is something that I couldn't do in this tool. So when you're designing, right, look how it's a very different thought process. When you're designing, usually you rearrange the screens in a way that makes sense for designing. But when you're presenting, you want to present in a way that actually tells the story, okay? So let me make it a little bit more beautiful, okay? Notice that when I'm moving my artboards, the connector stays in place, right? So this is what makes it easy. Okay, so another thing that is available in Overflow is the ability to add labels. So to add a label, all you need to do is double click, okay? So you could add things like, for example, the gesture. So this will swipe right. The transition, excuse me. Okay, you can rearrange and so on. Now, I think it's okay. There is a very easy way to add device skins in Overflow. So adding a device skin gives context. So immediately by adding this device skin, we are saying to our audience that this is for an iOS device, okay? And it took us like a minute or so, but we created a pretty decent user flow diagram. The power of Overflow, though, comes when you hit play. When you hit play, every connector that you added essentially becomes interaction, and you can click on it to navigate and explore the flow, right? And I'm going to use the arrow keys now, but you can go right, left, down. If I use the backspace, I can go back. And essentially, there are many ways built into Overflow that helps you navigate through the flow. There is a very nice keyboard shortcut, which is Command F, that you can actually search for a screen. And this will take you to that thing, okay? So let's say you presented, right? You created this user flow diagram, and now you want to share, to get additional feedback. Once you hit share, you can choose to enable comments, okay? And once you do that, you get a share link back. That share link can be accessed by anyone with the link and the passphrase if you choose to add one. So this is our share link. It's exactly what we've seen in the presentation, in the app. We get it online. But in addition to that, you also get comments. Okay. So if, let's say, someone left a comment, can we make this orange? We can see how this comment will be received, and we can make changes upon it. So imagine wanting to go into a design critic meeting, right? Having to show these designs. These are high fidelity designs. But if you share these things in advance and people get to see it, interact with it, go through the flow, and understand the story, that puts them in a better position to give you feedback. One of the things that I haven't mentioned is that Overflow comes with a rapid prototype mode. So even though I didn't create a prototype, just by connecting things together, I get to experience the designs like a prototype, okay? Let me do this. And you can also see it within a device key, okay? Now, we've received a comment. We had a comment to make this orange. So I'm going to go back to Figma. I'm going to go back to my design tool, and I'm going to listen to the feedback I got and make this orange. Okay. And then I'm going to sync to Overflow. Wow, boom. So that was super fast. And you saw that every connector, everything that I created remained in place and giving me the ability to iterate fast enough. Okay, and if I go back to the share link, you will see that the button is now orange. And this is a very new feature that we added in Overflow. It's version history. So it records all of our iterations, right? So if you want to go back and see how the designs were at the previous state of your project, then you can go back and see how it looked. And you can actually get to see the comments in which version they were added. So this is really, really helpful. Imagine documenting all the feedback you get during design critic meetings into the share link and having it as your single source of truth. All right, so I want to show you another small, my favorite, let's say, feature, which is the diamond node. So the diamond usually is used as the shape diamond is used as a decision node. So when you see this in user flow diagrams, usually you will do questions like, is the user logged in? And then you will branch into different flows. depending on the. Let me add a label. This is, sorry, I got it wrong. You see how easy it is to see it? If I'm logged in, I need to go straight into the tool. Okay, so let me add yes. Okay, this is no. Now, I added like a few more links and things started to become difficult to follow, right? So what a good practice to do is to use styles and different styles for each flow to indicate that. So to indicate which one is the primary flow, which one is the secondary flow. So in our case, this one, I would say that this is a secondary flow. So I will choose this color, let's say. And then from here, just so conceptually I understand which flow it is, I will make this yellow as well. Notice that when I go into present, even the shape becomes a focal point. So I can zoom into this thing. And then I can click on the connectors and go to the flow and the destination that I'm supposed to go to. Now, what happens if I see this in prototype mode? If I see this in prototype mode, look, there is not a tool that can show you this. So even when you're seeing screen by screen or shape by shape, you get to choose which path to follow, right? And this is pretty helpful and amazing. A few more details about the tool. So Overflow is working, it can work offline as well. But once you share, everything goes into the what we call Overflow dashboard, where this is the space where you will collaborate with your team. We have team folders, we have private folders. You can have folders with that can be shared with specific access, and you can invite people to join you. Once people join you and have access to your shared links, then they can do things like download a previous version, use the embed functionality to add it in tools like Notion, Jira, and so on. I think from my end, I will leave it up to here. And one thing that I wanted to share with you guys is that for the design critique, we have prepared these things. If you can copy the link, it will straight take you to this guide. So this is a design critique guide. It's basically what we've shared a little bit in the presentation, but we've created beautiful cards that are also for the person that is giving feedback. So the next time you'll go into an office, you can hand them off these cards and they can obey by the rules of presenting. Guys, that's it from me. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you found this useful. And yes.
I love the cards. I wish we had those for our own group critique meetings that we have our students attend, so we may have to borrow some of that. Okay, cool. So we do have some questions in the questions tab that I'm going to go through, and then we can spend a little bit of time answering those. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll start with the basics. Tommy is asking, can Overflow work in the browser as well, or is this just a separate standalone app?
So you cannot edit in the browser. You need to download the Overflow app, but you can preview the share links using the share link, and you can add comments to it.
Awesome. A little bit more about the tool.
When you do it in there.
A little bit more about the tool itself. Melissa's asking, can the arrows that you set up behind, or like, you know, from screen to screen, can the arrows go behind the screens, or are they just kind of placed automatically where they are?
Very good question. Actually, they go on top, so you cannot send them to back like you can do with all the other entities in the tool. The reason is that there is a reason. It's because we want to make sure that the audience sees. Can have a look at the path, can see the journey, so it's visible. That's what we want to promote in the tool. Yep,
that makes sense. All right. So I guess we kind of touched on this a little bit, but maybe we can reiterate a little bit more. So Peter's asking, is any of the original design editable in Overflow, or do you have to go back to your design tool like Figma to update it and then kind of pass on the screens again?
Yeah, exactly. So as we did with the example when we changed the button, you need to go back to the design tool to edit the design. The way that we can detect, let's say, the changes is by the name. So if you keep the name the same, then we can replace it in Overflow.
Got it. All right, so the next one is actually from Margaret. So this one's a little bit of a different question. So, hi Natalie, my product team is currently using Overflow, but because the app is desktop based, it's difficult to collaborate in real time, and each time I switch machines, I have to re-download the file. Are there any plans for a live collab web app?
Yes. Not the way you phrased it, but we know, and we definitely feel the same pain because we are like using Overflow every day. What we plan is to work a little bit on cloud saving. So the team is considering cloud saving, and we really want to make your workflow, better and smoother.
Design is an iterative process, right? All right. Next question. If you send out a presentation for feedback, do the commenters have to register with Overflow in order to add comments? And I guess a follow-up question could be, do they take up any type of seats or licenses or anything?
Yeah, you're like the best audience. You make such great questions. Okay, so you need to register, but you can register for free. So you only need a seat if you're planning to use the Overflow app to edit or create new shares, or you want to access the dashboard to view the team shares and so on. But to leave a comment, you can create an account and it's totally free, but you need to be authenticated.
Awesome. Another good question. Can Overflow present animated gestures, for example, a menu sliding in?
Unfortunately, no. And to be fair, I don't think that it will be supported in the near future. As I said, as a company, we have two products. We have the prototyping tool and Overflow. We want to focus Overflow on being a communication tool, doing user flow diagrams and making you present the work, and focusing a lot on the big picture rather than in the prototyping capabilities. There are so many tools that do a fantastic work. Overflow is not going to go, at least now, it is not going to go down that road.
All right, this one's a little juicy, and I'm going to combine these questions from Anil. But basically, in summary, Adobe XD has a collaboration feature. There's a way to prototype in there. In comparison to Overflow, kind of like what are the key differences that make Overflow a little bit more desirable for this part of the design process?
Mm-hmm. So we integrate with the most popular design tools, right? So by integrate, what we mean is that we are complementing the design tools. We don't plan on like copying them or like, we want to extend their function. So we do support prototyping links from XD. So if you create a prototype in XD, you can bring those links back to Overflow, and you don't need to recreate them. But Overflow, it's more about presenting. And as I tried to say it in the presentation, you don't present where you design. So if I wanted to present in any of the design tools, I would be panning around and trying to find the artboard and doing all these things, right? But when you're presenting, if you want to like captivate the audience and give them engaged, it needs to be polished. It needs to be, to the point. So I hope I answered the question on how it's different.
Yep, and I think we may have some fans, specifically from Designlab, because they are asking if there is a free version available of Overflow for them to try out, and whether or not we can maybe coordinate for some form of a discount.
Most definitely, but there is a 30-day trial. So by all means, go and sign up, try the tool out. We are doing webinars as well. So we are going more into depth about the tool. So we're going more into depth on what the functionality of the tool is. So if you register, you will also get invited to those, and hopefully we can chat again. So yes, we can definitely do something about the Designlab. community.
We will be in touch with each other, and I will let everyone know if we can.
Guys, your community is awesome. It's awesome, really. I find what you guys are doing fantastic.
That's awesome. Okay, so this one we kind of answered a little bit, but maybe we can clarify a little bit more. Mario's asking, can comments be left under one user login, or does each seat need to register? So from what we kind of talked about, I'm assuming that if you are just going to be a collaborator, meaning you're just going to comment and provide feedback, you just need to sign up for an account, but you will not be counted as a seat. Someone who is counted as a seat is basically someone who's going to be uploading designs, setting up the flow, and kind of managing all the comments. But for the most part, if you're just a contributor to the comments, you won't be requiring a seat. Is that correct?
I just dropped the link that I created during this session. So if you go and create an account, you can leave a comment for free. We can share the result later. Happy to hear what you have.
Awesome. All right, and then I think that actually may be it. Yeah,
I
no, it looks good.
Question about user testing. Oh, it was, or no?
Was it in the chat probably?
Probably. So there's a question, when was the product released? So we went into beta in 2018. So we were in beta for a year. We relaunched Overflow 1.0 1 year and a half, something like that. So yeah.
And I think the other, so just, this is from Barb. So just clarifying, this won't allow us to user test as a prototype, just presentations.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, so Barb, so the user testing question, so Barb asked, so this isn't a way to do user testing, it's more of a way to set it up as a prototype, do a presentation, and get collaborative feedback. Is that correct?
I would say that it can be used for user testing as well. So in our case, the way we use it, and I've seen many customers of Overflow doing so. So when you want to do user interviews and you want to tell the story, they use Overflow to do so. And because there is the direct link functionality, so in this example, let me just quickly share with this in the chat. You can customize the link, right? And it can feel like a prototype, so which you can use in user test. Let me just drop this here. The same link, right? But I customize it a bit. So when you send that for user testing, just to see how people react, they don't get to see the map, but they go straight into prototype mode.
Awesome.
And it can be used with any tool that is doing user testing because you have a link.
Got it. Awesome. Barb is saying big thank you. All right. And then this one may be a little bit of a preference question, but I feel like we may not have a preference. Melissa's asking, do you prefer Figma or Adobe to use with Overflow? I'm assuming that because plugins are available for both, it's kind of equal across the board.
Yes. Every design tool has its own, pros and cons. My actually favorite is Sketch, but I think Figma and XD gave a fresh, outlook in the industry. But what Figma did, it fundamentally changed our industry. So when we started with Overflow, there was no such thing as collaborative and online and web and all these things. But Figma changed that, and it changed that in a fantastic way. They executed perfectly, and it's pretty awesome to have them as part of their community, and they're pushing the design industry. So this is great.
I am in the same boat as you. I am also a very OG Sketch user. I do like Figma, but there are certain things about Sketch that haven't made it to Figma yet, so I'm patiently waiting. All right, so Rita, you do have a question about how can we use this in XD. I'm actually going to drop the Overflow help article as a response. Basically, it's just a way to, showing you how to set up your plugin and how you can get your screens from XD into Overflow.
Something that I mentioned, when you open the Overflow app, if you do have XD installed, we will go automatically and install the Overflow plugin for XD. If you have Sketch installed, we'll do the same with the plugin. The only difference, it's Figma where you need to go in and install it yourself.
So we got two plugins that happen auto magically, and then the other one you need to do it yourself. Awesome. These are great questions. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Any kind of closing thoughts, Natalie? Anything you'd like for, I guess, the majority of our folks to kind of take away from this presentation?
What I really is what I said at the beginning. So doing the work is only half the job. Communicating what you have done is the other half. So we need to get better. Everyone needs to get better. It doesn't, every time we can improve, right? So there is something we can improve at any given point in time. So that's what I want you to think about. And the lastly, which is one of the things that I read from Kim Scott, who she wrote the Radical Candor, is that feedback, it's a gift. It's not a whip, it's not a carrot, right? So these two closing thoughts, give Overflow a try, reach out to me at any time. And yeah, it's been fantastic, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Natalie, for your time. Really, really appreciate it, especially because it's so late for you. Natalie is a nighttime her time and daytime my time. So I love that we can make this work internationally, even with our time zone differences. Hopefully we get to collaborate again in the future. But yeah, so thank you everyone so much for being here. This is recorded. This will, like usual, go up on our YouTube channel. If you want to get notified when it's up, go ahead and subscribe. But if not, I believe everyone here should also receive an email with the recording as well. Cool? All right, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Natalie. We'll chat soon.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.